Tales from the Couch, the 2022-23 edition. We're going to get started. Okay, my NBA Finals picks. I'm going Warriors over the Celtics rematch, calling it right now. Over 5 years, we had 3 teams in the NBA Finals. We've had more shakeup. I'm going to get to how many teams are eligible for this, or at least my exercise is usually, if this team won the NBA Finals, would you be really surprised? Maybe a little surprised or really surprised, and that's what we'll do a little bit later. Am I doing it just because both teams won last night, opening night? No, I'm not. If you want to tell me Milwaukee's absolutely coming out of the East, I'd probably agree with you. And it always makes me think back to, like, what if KD hit that shot? How different would things be? Would Bud have been fired? People thought he was going to get fired during the playoffs. What if KD hit that shot? How different would it be for KD in Brooklyn? Would they have won that year? I don't know about that. Maybe. They just didn't have enough help around them. Does that mean maybe the Bucks win last year because they're more motivated by coming up short again? Would there have been more questions if they didn't win last year? It's like, hey, this Giannis guy puts up a lot of stats, but is he really a winner? Which are sort of the rules. We need to consider the best player or one of the 5 best players. Like, as soon as you don't win after like year 6 or 7, we're like, what's wrong with this guy? And sometimes the answer is that something is wrong with him. But there's nothing wrong with Giannis. So, little aside there. Do I think it's a repeat? Maybe. We'll get to it. The East has 3 teams, maybe 4. Philly's going to be good. Despite the loss last night, we'll get to them in a second here. I still think Philly's going to be really good. You got Philly, you got Boston, you got Milwaukee. I'll allow Brooklyn, but I'd like to at least see them play together for, I don't know, a few games. Is that okay? In the West, do we have 5? Golden State, Denver. People are really, really on the Clippers. I'm not saying they're not going to be good. I'm just surprised. I wouldn't pick them because it's a little bit like Brooklyn with the uncertainty. Memphis, would you allow Phoenix? I think we should allow it. I know nobody believes it, but if at the end of this whole thing, the redemptive arc, Phoenix wins, they figured it out. What happened last? Like, is it possible? I think it is possible. So we could say 8 teams, which is a long list for this league. Again, we had Golden State, Cleveland back and forth there for a while with a little sampling of Toronto in 2019. So I don't know. Is it 9 teams? New Orleans feels a little too soon. Dallas, Luka would have to do something special, but my rule, I don't love the heliocentric teams around one guy, despite whoever that guy is. So yeah, that's a lot for this league. So Boston's going to be good. It reminds me a little of Toronto and what dawned on me watching Toronto in 2019, although let's face it, Golden State's healthy. They don't have that championship, but it was still a very good team for the sense that they had a lot of shot creators, shot decision makers. I should say ball decision makers. Sometimes we like to sound cool and make these terms more complicated than they are. Scoring the basketball is one of the dumbest fucking things anyone has ever invented to say in any observation of sports. So Toronto had Kawhi, they had Siakam, they had Lowry, Van Vliet, Green, Norman Powell, Ibaka, not terrible if you had to take a dribble or 2. I'm not saying he would ISO anybody. And Gasol, who wasn't a dribbler, but was a terrific passer. That's a lot of guys that are comfortable with the basketball in their hands. Some have suggested that's actually what Oklahoma City is trying to do, not to copy the Toronto model from 2019, but put together a roster of length and players that can handle and make decisions. So people that are okay making decisions, a lot of length. We'll see. Checks a lot of boxes so far. But when I look at what Boston can throw at you, if they want to go small, I don't know if they'll do the hyper small Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Brogdon, Smart, Derek White thing. But that's 5 guys that are good with the basketball. I'm worried, obviously, Horford would be 6. Grant is such a good shooter. You're not going to have him dribble and break anybody down. But you see what I'm saying? Like, they can throw a lot of different people that can attack you. Dribble, drive, shoot. Dribble, drive, pass. That's impressive. And if you can pull it off and putting your team together that way, it's a huge, huge plus because it usually means, hey, can I get out of this if I have to? The other problem, though, we have for Boston, no Rob Williams last night. Even though they lost, or excuse me, well, I guess I should put it that way. Even though Philly lost to Boston last night, I still think I would like Philly against Boston without Rob Williams long term. I think the Celtics rebounding, even though they're +5 last night, will be a problem for them while they wait on Williams' return. Noah Vonleh in a game, he looks in shape. I'll give him that. I thought he fought hard defensively against Embiid, but he don't really have much of a chance. And Philly's deep. Philly's pretty deep as well. I mean, Thibault was kind of an afterthought in the rotation for last night, and Maxey got it going late. And Harden looks a lot better. He does look a lot better, despite me despising the falling forward into the defender to get the free throws. Although the Blake foul was just a stupid foul on Blake. So I feel good about Philly. I feel good about Boston. The only thing with Philly, there was, I know they had 29 points in the fourth quarter. There were touches of getting a little stagnant there offensively, even if they got buckets from it, because they did. They scored, again, 29 points. There were some stretches where the game was still in the balance. It's like, are you guys kind of going back to your default things that you're more comfortable with? But it is good to see a healthy Harden if you're a Sixers fan, although I am fucking pumped that we're almost on 2 years of hamstring updates. Let's talk Warriors on their side of things here for a second. They're going to be better. I've been saying it all summer. I don't think this is that big of a take at all. A couple of the young guys are going to be better. Poole's going to be better. Clay's going to be better. And they did a really good job keeping as much of this as they could together. Like, hey, sorry, they didn't pay Gary Payton $9 million a year. But they kept Looney. And now their biggest weakness, if they had a weakness last season, because they did, I mean, you can still win a title and have weaknesses, with depth along the front line. If Wiseman's playing all the season, that's a huge plus. He doesn't have to be an all-star. You can already see what the role is. High screens, rim run. Get there. He's a ton to deal with. I'd still say it's even a little choppy offensively for him, but it was the first game back. I've not been told, okay, look out, this guy's going to take the world over, but I've been hearing really good things about him. I know the start of his career is not what you want. 39 games his rookie year, looked lost. But again, he's allowed, he's in a situation where he's actually not allowed to be lost. If he were playing for Minnesota and he were healthy, well, I shouldn't say Minnesota anymore because they have a good front line. If he were playing for Sacramento, bad Sacramento, not new and improved Sacramento this season, because we've been on that over here. But if Wiseman were on just a bad team, or he's allowed to just do whatever the fuck he wants, he'd score 15 points, not even trying. All right. But it was defense and it was the offensive role. They're going to be a better basketball team. Remember, the Warriors last season had a lot of injuries and gaps of not having people. They were 27-6 and 41-13 at some point. They finished 53-29, which is, I think, if they had finished with 60 wins and won a title, that people would be buying into the idea that they were like clearly, they might actually just be clearly the team in the West, and we should stop fucking pretending that it's 5 teams. That might be true as well. Not sure yet. Need more data. Let's talk a little LA. I was texting with a front office guy last night, and he goes, who's the Lakers' third best player? I went, wow. I was like, do I say Kendrick Nunn? That seems wrong. Seems like you shouldn't say that. Do I say Patrick Beverly? Like, I don't really want to say that either. We knew this was going to be a struggle. When you actually see it and you go, okay, let's look at the minute breakdowns here. Pat Beverly, he only played 25 minutes because he had 5 fouls. Lonnie Walker, which I've never quite understood, started. That's going to be tough. Is the backcourt actually Beverly and Walker? Matt Ryan, who I think they signed so Austin Reeves would have somebody to hang out with. Wenyen Gabriel, there's some blowout minutes in here too. The point is this, and I like Toscano Anderson, I like Reeves. They're number 3 to 10. Stack that up against some other just decent teams, not even the best teams. That gets a little thin. If there's a positive from all of this, it's that 80 looked like Anthony Davis again. LeBron's going to get his numbers. I think you're going to see him slow down. I saw it last year a little bit. People told me I was nuts. He's supposed to slow down, by the way. We're 20 years into this whole thing, but he's still so good and so smart. He's still going to get his numbers, but I think you're going to see him have long stretches where this guy can coast and get 30. It's fucking crazy. Let's talk a little Westbrook. Barkley said trade him at halftime. He said he wasn't happy, he had no joy. Well, you don't just trade him because Westbrook's bummed out. Westbrook obviously going to pick up the option. Speaking of options, Westbrook looked a lot happier in the video where he cranked it out that day in his car singing along when he picked up his $47 million player option, which is the right thing to do. Would never blame him. But when you kind of are like, fuck everybody, here's the video of me picking this up, you can't then also get mad when people give you shit. Reggie Miller not going to give him shit, though. We're going to save that one for worst take a little bit because, as I've said throughout, and it's happened numerous times, people default to, hey, Westbrook still got you 18, 7, and 7. 18, 7, and 7. And then Westbrook, after the game, said that Darvin Ham bringing him off the bench in the last preseason game absolutely led to his hamstring strain. I thought this was all Vogel's fault. Don't worry, folks. We're going to be here all season. Speaking of disrespect, we are keeping track of it this season. The Disrespect All-Stars. Who is the most disrespected? Tyler Hero out of the gates, first teamer. Last year, he said he was in the same conversation with Luka, Trey, and Ja. He was asked to follow up before the season started. He doubled down and said, quote, "Don't feel any different. My numbers back it up with those guys." PER career for those other players. Luka, 24. Trey, 22. Ja, 19. Tyler Hero, 14.3. The numbers do not back it up. We will be keeping track of disrespect. Another thing we noticed last season, speaking of the disrespect play, is the woe was me, how come nobody wants to vote me for all of these awards bullshit campaigning that we saw at the end of last season. It's never been worse. Never been worse than it was last year. Everybody was the most depressed guy ever trying to figure out how he's going to win. Jonathan Kuminga, in a preview that I saw, was talking about maybe winning Defensive Player of the Year, but he's like, I'm not going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I was like, dude, the first rule of Defensive Player of the Year Club is that you have to say that you're Defensive Player of the Year. Bam still can't figure out how he didn't fucking win it despite only playing 56 games. I love Bam. I would have voted for him. He played 56 games. The other guys played more. Little contract update. Who needs a Cam Reddish isn't getting an extension tweet? I loved him. I couldn't get enough of him. I'm like, please update me on the Cam Reddish extension situation. I forgot what fucking team he was on for like a week. He did not get an extension. DeAndre Hunter did. 4 years, $90 million, maybe 95 with some unlikely bonuses based on whatever you've read to this point. I have no idea if DeAndre Hunter is a great pickup or this is awful. He's already missed 82 games. I know what he's supposed to be. I know he had some decent games there against the Heat, but that contract, and I'm going to default because I feel like Atlanta's made a lot more. They have. Atlanta has been better than they've been bad at it. Everybody makes mistakes. They've been a good front office here for multiple years. I actually really kind of liked what they were putting together there. I'm not even knocking the Hunter contract. It just, when the number came out, it was one of those deals you're like, I have no idea where you land on this. And this is an absolute leap of faith for a guy that's been pretty inconsistent. I know what he's supposed to be if he's pretty good. But you know what? That's far more important than Cam Reddish's numbers. So there you go. Warriors over Celts. I said it. Repeat. Doing it again. Embiid MVP. Okay, done. Paolo Rookie of the Year. Coach of the Year, Joe Mazzulla. That's your preview.